Well, hello, everybody. You made it to lesson 5 of the body module. This is one of the most powerful and important modules, for me at least, in accessing all the reasons we eat on top of how we believe about food and eating. So, way to go. Here's what we're going to do in this module. First of all, a quote from Pema Chodron. In that awkward, ambiguous moment is our own wisdom mind. Right there, in the uncertainty of everyday chaos, is our own wisdom mind. For me, this means right there in the middle of that awkward, ambiguous feeling about food and the way we're eating and what our body is like is our own wisdom mind. So in this final lesson, a few comments about fearful thoughts versus loving thoughts, and hearing the one clearly who really wants to compulsively eat or starve. Common fearful beliefs that many people may need to question, and then identifying a story about mother or father and eating and bodies. That's really helpful. Judge Your Neighbor worksheet. So first of all, hearing that voice of, to make it a short way to say it, green light eater. It's really green light, red light eater, the mean eater might be even a better way to say it. The one who focuses on fear around food or eating, or just simply seeking pleasure, not liking the particular present moment and therefore moving towards food, which is pleasurable. This is about noticing that voice, which you all have noticed strongly, and sensing our fear and anxiety and discord that we have about food, eating, and bodies. So one way that's very helpful around this is to really clearly make characters or understanding, like as if it's an entity itself that's really separate from you. I am not this whole thing that is off balance around food or eating. It's some belief system, a voice in my head. So there's a wonderful author, Jenny Schaefer, who recovered from a severe eating disorder. She wrote a book called Life Without Ed. The word ed, she personified from using ED, which is shortened and the initials in a lot of the literature for eating disorder. So as she began to speak about eating disorder, and she and her therapist did a lot of work on the character of the eating disorder, she would refer to this one as Ed. And then she realized, come to think of it, it seems like it's a man or male somehow, and like I am married to an abusive partner who's very strong and powerful. So that personification was perfect for her. And she was able to identify more clearly who is talking, who is saying the thoughts that are in her head about what she should or should not be eating or doing, or how she should be interacting with food and eating in the world. She could identify more clearly, oh, that's Ed. That's not Jenny. Annie Lamott also writes about this phenomena. She is hilarious, and she called it the voice, the mean voice, or the voice with a capital T, of like KFCK radio. So we know what that one is. You turn that radio on, you're in that frequency, and that radio station is saying everything negative, cussing, moaning, criticizing, absolutely horribly mean about absolutely everything that it sees in reality, and you, most of all you. It's just noticing that's a voice in the head. It is not who you are. So go ahead and do it. Give your crazy off-balance eater a name. What does this entity or person look like? We did this once in a small class very early on when I was doing the Eating Peace program, and I just did it for 8 weeks. And I did that repeatedly for a few times before I realized it needed to be a longer program. And we always did this in like class number 6 of that program. And it was absolutely amazing, the creativity and the interesting visions that people had, where they weren't even trying to make something up special. They just suddenly came to them like, oh, my eating disorder, my way that I think about eating is like a crazy person that lives in my attic, and they just get, they're just crazy up there, and they're really scary. Anyway, it's very interesting. So just take a little moment. You can pause right now if you feel interested in this. If it makes you nervous, don't worry, that's kind of normal. Do that at the end of this lesson. So once you've got your ed or your mean eater or your I don't care voice, that would all be in there, the voice that criticizes you, shames you in any situation with food or your weight, have a dialogue with it. So you'd start with the voice of that eater, overeater, compulsive eater, undereater, restricting eater, just the off balance, mean eater. Start with that one. Allow that one to argue or speak and convince you why the eating peace process or self-inquiry or doing the work or anything about healing your relationship with eating is not going well. I know that sounds funny, but just let it talk, because it's probably running in there anyway. And then once it's had its say for whatever it wants to be speaking first, like a script, you would then write compassionate advisor. And if your compassionate advisor actually has a name, a specific name, or whatever that one is, let that one answer. And then go back and forth and back and forth and dialogue back and forth until it's run its course, or you feel like you've had enough for a while. And you might be amazed at what the compassionate advisor has to say back to this eater, and also what this eater is really worried about, what this eater, the mean eater voice, is trying to achieve or accomplish. So, next thing to do is just simply notice. Let this wash over you. I find this helpful. It's like I'm identifying some beliefs that are super, super common, and you can just write them down if they seem to be so familiar, you want and need to question them. They're one-liners. This is too hard. Avoiding eating something, being mindful, being balanced with food. It will be too hard at some point. I'll feel too much. I'll get too tempted. I already am too tempted. Like whatever too tempted is, that it will just kill me. I have to eat this one last time. Many of us say this when we think I absolutely have to cut XYZ out of my diet entirely, so I'm going to eat it one last time. I won't be able to cope with difficult feelings, difficult situations. I won't be able to not overeat in the future. Right now, I might be doing okay and I have the support, but I won't be able to do that later. I can't do it. This isn't it. Something's missing. I screwed up already. I made a mistake. I may as well keep eating. I'm afraid I'll feel uncomfortable in the future. There will be reasons later for overeating. I'll probably fail. I'll be deprived if I don't eat, fill in the blank. There's something wrong with me. I can't control my impulses. I'm too unable to say no to pleasure. I am powerless. I am empty. I am bored. I am afraid. That's what I am in those moments when we think it. That's what I am. And eating will help. Yelling at myself and calling myself names will be motivating. All right, so just notice how those voices, what the energy's like. It can feel very depressing, incredibly discouraging, but just notice it. Often it's like the underlying belief is violence leads to change, violence in any form, even mild violence, verbal violence, energetic violence, will lead to change, fear or violence. So let's turn them around. Just notice how it feels when you hear the turnarounds, all the turnarounds to these thoughts. This is not hard. It's easy. It's easy to avoid eating something. It's easy to be mindful about food and eating. It's easy to understand this eating peace thing. It will never be too hard. Not ever. I won't feel too much. I'll always survive and make it. I'll never get too tempted, even if I am tempted temporarily. I do not have to eat this at all or ever. I am able to cope with difficult feelings. I'm able to cope with difficult situations, difficult relationships, and difficult thoughts. I'm able to never overeat in the future. I can do it. This is it. Nothing is missing. I screwed up and made a mistake. It's time to stop, and it's not a serious deal that I did that. I'm excited. I'll feel uncomfortable in the future. I'm looking forward to that. It's going to teach me something, show me something. There will never be reasons later for overeating. I'll probably succeed. I'll be happy and comfortable if I don't eat, fill in the blank of that thing you feel really frightened about not eating. There's something right with me. I can control my impulses. I'm able to say no to pleasure if it's toxic or has unhealthy effects. I am powerful. I am satisfied. I am trusting. Eating actually never helps when I feel the absence of those things. Loving myself, being kind, gentle, and open is motivating and will be later too. All right, final little segment of this last lesson in our body module. Powerful to notice the conditioning. We've done that some already woven throughout the program. But consider your mother or father, whoever you feel most drawn to take a look at. And of course you can do both. I highly recommend doing both actually at some point. So consider mother. What did she say about food or eating or weight? What was her philosophy? What was her religion about food, eating, or weight? How did she feel about food? Was there ever a moment that she said something upsetting about your eating or your body? And for many of us, no, there perhaps wasn't. Not that you can vividly remember, but what would she say about anyone's eating or body? What would she say about it now? If you could see into her mind, what do you think she would say? What did she say about her own body and her own way of eating and her own expectations? What was her religion of food? What was her way of being with food and eating? So considering all that, based on remembering and putting together maybe a composite of different situations, understanding your mother, there she is. Imagine you could see her sitting in a chair or sitting in her favorite place or doing whatever she did. And write a judge your neighbor on your mother or your father if that's who you're focusing on. And a moment, or as I said, composite of moments when you're disturbed about her food and eating. And it's okay if you don't have a one specific situation, I think, for this particular thing. Just notice what you believe her philosophy about food, eating, and bodies are. So you can write it in whatever way that feels most right. I love the judge your neighbor questions because they prompt different ways of answering. And you can just write a ton of one-liners about what your mother would think and then what your father would think. All right, that's it for this lesson. So let's close here with Katie's quote from A Thousand Names for Joy. The master can't seek fulfillment. She's already filled to the brim. There isn't room for a drop more. When you have what you want, when you are what you want, there's no impulse to seek anything outside yourself. So this is not a quote to take to mind and say, I'm not doing that yet, I'm not good enough. That's really what, in some ways, part of this lesson is all about. But just noticing, can you imagine the feeling of that? When you actually have what you want, when could this be what I want right now? It doesn't mean something won't change. When I sense something that is alive inside, right inside me now, no matter what my body is doing or where it's been or where I've been or what I've done in the past, all the feelings and experiences I've had with food and eating, it's just all okay. And I can feel something that is what I want right here. Can I imagine that? Can I just wonder about that? And imagine not seeking anything outside myself, including a different body, food itself, or the behavior of eating off balance. All right. Lots of love. I'll see you in the live calls.